Hey there, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Don't mess with her. Janice and Ashley had always been at the top of the social ladder at Northridge High. Gorgeous, wealthy, and feared by everyone, they had a special talent for finding weakness in others and exploiting it. And their favorite target was Sabrina. Sabrina was the school's ghost, silent and strange, always sitting alone in the back corner of every classroom. Her stringy black hair hung like a curtain over her pale face, and she never spoke unless forced. The one thing anyone ever noticed about her was the ancient doll she carried in her ratty backpack. It was a grotesque thing, porcelain with cracked skin, its glassy eyes yellowed with age, its face frozen in a grimace of eerie calm. No one knew why Sabrina carried it everywhere, but they loved making fun of her for it. That day, as Sabrina walked by Janice and Ashley in the hallway, the two girls exchanged a wicked glance. Janice, with her ice blue eyes flashing with malice, grabbed Sabrina's backpack, yanking it open. The doll tumbled out onto the floor with a sickening thud, its fragile neck snapping. "Oops!" Janice sneered, scooping up the doll's head and holding it high for the crowd to see. "Look at this! Sabrina's still playing with..." Ashley laughed, her eyes gleaming. "What a freak! Maybe she talks to it at night, huh?" The hallway echoed with laughter. Students gathered around, pointing and jeering at Sabrina, calling her names. But Sabrina didn't move. Her cold, expressionless eyes locked on Janice and Ashley, her pale lips parting just enough to whisper, "I will not leave you." The air seemed to chill. There was something unnatural in the way she said it, a darkness behind her eyes that made the laughter falter for just a moment. But Janice, ever fearless, just rolled her eyes and tossed the doll's broken head to the ground, stomping on it for good measure. "Whatever, freak," she spat, and the crowd dispersed, laughing once again. That night, Janice awoke in terror. She was standing alone by the school's swimming pool, the moon high overhead casting a pale, sickly light on the water. The pool was calm, the surface unnaturally still, like a mirror. The silence pressed in around her, thick and suffocating. Then, without warning, something grabbed her ankles from below, yanking her into the freezing water. She tried to scream, but her voice was gone. She kicked, thrashed, clawed at the surface, but she was being dragged deeper into the blackness. The water was freezing, icy fingers wrapping around her throat, her chest tightening as she struggled to breathe. She was an excellent swimmer, but it didn't matter. Her limbs felt heavy, useless, as if the water itself was swallowing her alive. As her lungs filled with water and the blackness overtook her, she woke up, gasping, soaked in sweat, her hands clutching at her throat. Meanwhile, across town, Ashley was having her own nightmare. She was in her bed, but something was wrong. Her room was filled with thick smoke, the air hot and stifling. She looked down and saw flames licking up the sides of her bed, crawling toward her skin. They weren't just burning her, they were eating her alive. The flesh on her arms bubbled and peeled, her hair singed, the smell of burning skin filling her nostrils. She tried to scream, but the fire swallowed her cries. The pain was unbearable, searing her nerves, leaving nothing but agony. When she awoke, she was drenched in sweat, her sheets twisted around her like they were trying to strangle her. Things only got worse from there. A few days later, Ashley and her boyfriend Danny were driving down a quiet road when the car's brakes failed. The car veered wildly off the road, skidding on the gravel, narrowly missing a tree before crashing into a ditch. The car flipped, glass shattering, metal screaming as it twisted and crunched. They crawled out, miraculously alive but shaken to the core. That same day, Janice was at swim practice when it happened. As she dove into the pool, she felt something grab her leg. She kicked, trying to shake it off, but it wouldn't let go. Panic surged through her as she tried to swim to the surface, but the water seemed to thicken, pulling her down, filling her lungs with freezing liquid. She was drowning, and she knew it. Her coach saved her just in time, but as she lay on the edge of the pool, coughing and retching, she saw Sabrina standing in the doorway. She was staring at her, her face as expressionless as ever. "I thought you could swim," Sabrina said, her voice low and mocking. "Who's the freak now, Janice?" The fear gnawed at them until they couldn't take it anymore. That weekend, they decided to confront Sabrina. They had to end this nightmare. Sabrina lived in an old, dilapidated house on the edge of town. The windows were dark, the paint peeling, and the air around it felt wrong, like the house itself was alive and watching them. They knocked, but there was no answer. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, it was dead silent. No sign of Sabrina's family, no sign of life. The girls wandered through the dark, dusty rooms until they found her in a back bedroom. She was sitting in a chair, cradling two dolls in her arms, dolls that looked disturbingly familiar. One had Janice's blonde hair, the other Ashley's dark curls. The dolls' necks were twisted, just like the broken doll they had mocked. "What the hell is this?" Janice screamed, her voice shaking. "What are you doing?" Sabrina slowly looked up, her eyes gleaming with something ancient and malevolent. "You broke my doll," she whispered, her voice like ice. "Now I'll break yours." She began twisting the neck of the doll in her hand. Janice screamed as a sharp, unbearable pain shot through her neck. It felt as if invisible hands were crushing her throat, twisting her head, forcing her down. Ashley collapsed next to her, clutching her neck, gasping for air. The pain was excruciating, as though their spines were being snapped in two. "I told you I wouldn't leave you," Sabrina said, her voice soft and mocking. "And I always keep my promises." As she snapped the dolls' necks with a final, sickening crack, Janice and Ashley's bodies went limp, their necks twisted at grotesque angles, their eyes staring blankly into the void. Sabrina stood up, leaving the lifeless dolls on the floor, and walked past their broken bodies, her face as empty and cold as ever. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it the distant echoes of their final screams.